Hello, everyone, and welcome to your first day of class. I'm Marketing Communications Manager and faculty member Daniel Sloan, and on behalf of Trident, I want to say thank you for taking the next step in your educational journey with us. New students often have a lot of questions, and we are here to help. As a way to ease you into our unique student-centered model, we've designed this webinar that will cover all the areas vital to success in your chosen program. Let me introduce today's presenters. First, we have Dr. George Del Hierro, who's currently a department chair in University College. During his time at Trident, he has worked closely with students in a variety of roles, including academic advising, financial aid, and academic probation support services. Dr. Del Hierro earned a PhD in educational leadership from Trident and has received numerous awards during his time at the university, including honors for communication and collaboration and student motivation. He is a passionate advocate for student success. Next, we have Tasha Cureton. She currently serves as a Student Success Advisor 3 and part-time faculty member. For the past 10 years, she has helped facilitate initiatives to improve student success, namely as senior manager in the Center for Student Success. From assisting with orientation to being a member on the Committee of Academic Standards, her passion is to help students reach their academic dreams. Joining us during the Q&A session will be Christina Sines, Student Success Advisor 3 in our Center for Student Success. She's held a number of roles during her 10 years at Trident, including Supervisor of Graduate Advisors. Her dedication to meeting student needs is demonstrated through compassionate, active listening, seeking to understand and striving to act in the best interests of her students. Just a couple notes before we begin the session. Although a portion of the webinar has been pre-recorded, you have the option to ask questions at any time. Look for the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, find a question box, type in your question, and hit submit. The FDOC team is behind the scenes right now. Let us know if you have any questions. We'll answer them during the live Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Now I'm going to hand things off to Tasha to talk about student success tips. The floor is yours, Tasha.
Thanks, Daniel, and welcome everybody. We're so excited to have you here. I love Trident University. I've been a student, I teach, and I wear many different hats, and I work with students very closely. So this is an exciting time for you to start on your educational path. Here's some things that we're going to go over today. We're going to talk about tips for success. I'm going to spend some time really digging in there. It can be a little nerve-wracking when you haven't done school for a while, or it's just a totally new environment. And so we want to make that transition as smooth and comfortable as possible for you. Dr. Del Hierro is going to talk about academic writing. That tends to be one of the main concerns with students when they're coming back to school is how do I write? How do I get back in the mode of formatting my paper? And then we're going to talk about career and networking support. But I would ask everyone to stick around for what I think is one of my favorite parts of the webinar, which is the questions section. We always have great questions, and there's a great student success story at the end. So stay tuned. Now we're going to talk a little bit about just tips for success and moving into your classes for the first time. So whether you've been away for years, maybe this is your first class in college, or maybe you're just transitioning right into a different school, we want you to be confident. Everyone here has a different walk of life, and you all bring different perspectives. Whether you're a stay-at-home parent, maybe you're a veteran or advanced in your career, or maybe like one of my 89-year-old students who came back and got a master's degree, you're in another season of life and you're ready to move forward. So what I mean by that is know that your perspective will enhance the conversation and your discussions in your class, and you are worthy to be here. So feel free to ask questions. Know that you're supported. We're going to talk about your support team. Get to know your professors and peers. As faculty members on here, we often see students a little nervous to reach out to us, and there's no need for that. We want you to feel connected as a university and between you and the student. You as the student, my apologies. We're going to talk a lot about time management and long-term academic planning, but most importantly, have fun. And this will help with your motivation. This is something, if you ever get stuck or just feel like things are difficult, that's when it's time and a trigger should go off that you need to reach out and connect with us. And we are here and we genuinely want to help. So let's start by talking about time management. And this is something very near and dear to my heart. As Danny Sloan said, I got my master's degree at Trident University. At the time, I was a manager. I had a very extremely premature baby. I was in the office a lot and managing life and work, and I wanted to get my master's degree. So I can relate to trying to balance it all. One of my rules was when I got home from work, I wasn't allowed to sit on the couch. And the reason I say that is because it is so easy, especially these days, to just sit down, watch some TV, or get on your phone and just kind of veg out. By staying off the couch, my rule was then I wasn't allowed to sit on the couch until I went and did my homework. So that kind of comes up to our first point, which is create a time management plan. This might be new for some of you, or some of you might live and die by your planner. And so if this is new for you, think about it this way. You're creating a plan to succeed. When I see students not creating a plan, sometimes I challenge them to do so, and usually they come back and are able to submit more on time. They're able to figure out when they want to go to school for themselves. No one here is telling you to go to school at what time, right? Usually you have a certain amount, whether if it's your CERT program, you have a week, or if it's your master's, associates, or bachelor's, you have 2 weeks to do your module. And so anytime within there, you need to set aside a few nights or maybe mornings, whenever you think best and you have time dedicated to make that your school time. So when your friends call and they miss you because they haven't seen you in a while, you've got schoolwork to do and you want to plan your life around that. Now, Trident is all about flexibility too. And so consider weekends, holidays, birthdays, vacations. We want you to have a life, but you're now fitting this new component into your schedule. And if you don't make time for it, there just won't be time for it. And so I love to see a student with a plan. If that's something you can do today, get out your planner. I use my planner here. I have a wall calendar that you can see here in the back, and I have a digital calendar. So I am all about scheduling your schoolwork. And in the beginning, you may want to go in every day for even 15 minutes just to get a sense of what do you need to accomplish the things and to kind of feel like you're in the rhythm of school. Because I always tell students, in your first few sessions, always take classes back to back so that you can get into a good rhythm. Because once you get out of that rhythm, sometimes it's hard to jump back in. So write down your due dates. The bachelor's and master's and associate's classes are usually due on Sunday nights. So I would always say try and do your first discussion the first week of the module and your peer responses the following week. If you have questions about this, we can talk more in the Q&A section as well. And make adjustments to your schedule, but I think the key is to just have a plan, right? Don't get discouraged when you fall behind. Again, as I mentioned before, that's kind of that trigger. If you're falling behind, you may think, oh, well, I don't want to give excuses, or this is just on me. Trust me, we understand what it's like to be adults and to have things come up. And so we can't help you if we don't know what's going on. And it's not to judge you. It's not to be upset with you. It's to say, hey, that's okay. Look, you still have time to do this, or maybe we can help you with this option. Again, there are options and exceptions if needed. And that's something that there are eligibility requirements, but we want to help you with. So let's talk a little bit about who you're going to be reaching out to in that support group. When you log into your student portal today on the homepage of mytlc.trident.edu, you will see 2 photos, and those are consider that kind of like your support team, right? There's going to be your student finance advisor, and there's going to be your student success advisor. Hey, maybe some of you guys have my face on there. You never know. I do support a lot of students, and I love it. And so in addition to that, right now, if you've just started your program, you are working with your admissions advisor. You've probably hopefully you built a good rapport with them. And once they get you all set up in class and started in class, within the first 2 weeks, they're going to transition you over to someone like myself, a student success advisor, who is then going to become your point of contact. I'd always encourage you to save their phone number, note when they email you. I always try to only email my students when it's something important that I want them to know. And so just kind of start to get in the groove of checking your emails every day, or we text and we call. So, and then finally, the other piece to that puzzle is your instructor. Now that will change from session to session, but they don't know what they don't know, right? And so if you're not submitting work and they don't know what's going on with you, they're just assuming maybe they're not interested in class, or you just don't want to leave any room for assumption. So I would always say, even just email your teacher and give them an update about what's going on, or if you have any questions, or maybe there's something that you like about the class. So just know that although you're alone in your room or at your desk doing your work, you're not alone. You are part of this bigger Trident family. And so I really hope that when you make it to our commencement and you watch the video or you attend in person, that you can see that you are a part of a much bigger, huge Trident family. All right, so now we're going to talk about some of our resources. You may be wondering, okay, what is there available for me that's going to help me transition and getting started in school? So in your mytlc.trident.edu portal, there is across the top several options, and one of them on the far right says My Resources. Here you'll see a list of resources available to you. Math and writing tend to be a big thing that students are concerned about, rightfully so. Usually students will be nervous about managing their time and writing and doing the academic piece. If you could manage your time, you've got half of the battle won. Now here's the resources that could help. We do use APA formatting as our general formatting style for the school for papers. Now, it is important to note that that's what we stick with, but it's depending on your assignments, it might not be required. Like in a math class, they might not ask that you do APA. We are in the transition right now. Some classes are using edition 6 and some 7. That is something that is in the process of transitioning. So I'd always ask your teacher, but the key is I would encourage you to start to get to know that. A quick Google search and you will find so much information on that. But don't be worried, don't be overwhelmed by it. Learning is a gradual process, right? And then the Turnitin guide, which is something to kind of help you ensure that your work shows as your original work. The next thing that we're going to talk about is tutoring services. So if you see on this next slide that you are in one of these classes, English 101, Math 101, Statistics and Math 201, Health Statistics, Operations Management, Finance, or any of the TUX courses, there is something, and you'll see on here on the screen, that's called free tutoring. What this is we've partnered with tutor.com. And so if you're like me, you stay up late and you do your homework after the kids are in bed and everything's done. And so you can access a tutor anytime, 24/7. And it usually takes about 1 to 2 minutes to connect, but it's a great option if you're just feeling like, I just need to ask a few questions, or am I doing this right? So I'd encourage you to use that. The next is one of my favorite options or resources, because it's something that I help facilitate. Every day I'm in this orientation helping new students answer questions, have discussions. So if you have not done that as of today, please go in and before you go into your class, complete the online orientation. You'll have access to it for up to 6 months after you start your program, but it's by far the best way to go in and learn the portal, learn the classroom, and how you can navigate, how you can find your teachers, how you can participate in discussion. You can practice submitting work to make sure that you do it correctly. And I'm in there every day answering questions and just making sure people feel comfortable. And usually the feedback is that, oh my gosh, this is what helped me and overcome that hump and feel comfortable. Next, we're going to talk about just kind of first steps to do. I've kind of laid the groundwork now, but go in, log in to your class, do your orientation, and take a tour of your class. There's not much that you can click on that's going to break your class, or there's really not anything that could break it. But sometimes people are a little nervous. Just click around. There's different ways to access different information. And so the more time you spend in the class, the more you're going to feel comfortable. Look over the syllabus, read the assignments, and post your introduction. I always say the introduction is the easiest part. You literally just go in and say, hi, this is me, a little bit about me. And then you get to read about your peers and see that you might have a lot in common or something to learn from the peers in class. Ask questions and develop your time management plan. So that's kind of like the pre-gaming for the class, right? You want to make sure you've read the syllabus, you've read everything, but don't feel overwhelmed. I always felt in college, like the first week of class, that it was a lot of information, but then over time, you get reminders, you check your schedule, and you're doing good. And so develop that plan and check in with your advisor. I always, whenever I see a student that I don't know, I call them. I'm like, I need to know you because we haven't spoken yet, and I truly want to know them and what their goals are. So in summary today, you're going to log in, you're going to complete your orientation, you're going to introduce yourself in your class, and then I would encourage you by midweek, usually by Wednesday, to submit at least your Module 1 discussion post. That's different than your introduction. That's an actual assignment discussion post. Keep in mind, teachers are bound to a rubric. What is a rubric? It is a list of criteria that the student needs to meet for each assignment. And so you can see even in your class, okay, if I submit it on time, I'm going to get like full points, or, you know, they require this many words, so I get this many points. So always look at your rubrics. For all of our assignments, every module is 3 assignments. You're going to have your case assignment, your SLP, and your discussion post. Most classes have 4 modules. I think pretty much all of them. And sometimes your SLP might be a quiz or a paper. Your case assignment typically is a paper or an activity in that regard. Get to know your professors, set up your work area, and just be ready to go. And I would say as soon as you get your first discussion in, try to write a paper maybe by the weekend so that you don't have your case assignment, your SLP the second week of class. Or if you do both of them in the second week, it's no problem. But just make sure that you kind of know each day what you're going to be working on and submitting. And so my last advice is just really reach out, and we don't want you to feel alone. I always tell my students, I am full of the most random information. And so you don't know unless you ask. Maybe you can't find a resource in the library. Maybe you aren't sure how to set up text to get a grade notification. We can help you with that. So that being said, I'm excited for you. Hopefully that this information was helpful. I'm going to turn the time over to Dr. Del Hierro, and he's going to discuss one of the topics that I think is really crucial, and get ready to take some good notes. We're going to talk about academic writing. Dr. Del Hierro, I turn the time over to you.
On behalf of the faculty, I just want to extend my warmest welcomes to all of you. It's always the most exciting time of the month for us to welcome in a brand new crop of leaders into the Trident family. And so We all look forward to interacting with you, getting to know you, and seeing what great things you accomplish in and out of the classroom. So this section focuses on academic writing. It's one of the points of concern for some students, especially who have been out for a while. It causes some anxiety, and so the goal of these next couple slides are just to relieve some of that anxiety and give you some direction to build momentum. So Michael mentioned it, but these first couple days, it's going to be really imperative for you to get the wheels going. And so I hope to provide a broad overview of what your faculty will expect of you with writing, and to relieve some of that anxiety for you. This first slide is it's meant to frame your mindset for what the expectations are within academic writing, and why and how is it different from what you might be used to within your military experience or business experience. So the three key differences that I want you to think about between business and / military and academic writing are the goals of writing, the process of writing, and voice. And so when you're in the military, so the first one is the goals of writing. If you're going to graduate from an accredited institution, you're expected to have a high degree of written and oral communication skills. And so that is kind of what we're helping prepare you for upon graduation. So the first point that I want you to think about is the goal of writing. So when you're in a business environment and when you're in a military environment, your goal of writing, the only purpose you're writing is for mission accomplishment and to accomplish objectives. The difference within what you're going to find in an academic environment is that the goal of writing is to help you become a better communicator. And so there are some steps and some areas that we look for as your faculty to help you become a better thinker and to help you become a better writer, a more effective writer. So for example, within the military and in business, you're writing to accomplish this objective as quickly and efficiently as possible. And when you're in your academic classes, we're looking for your logic and rational thought development of your ideas. So sometimes this comes out when you're answering questions as maybe a 1 to 2 sentence or a 1 to 3 sentence reply to answer a question, because you're in that mindset of answering the question and giving the conclusion as quickly and efficiently as possible. But that's not the only thing. That's actually not the most important thing that your faculty is looking for. It's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for the reasons why and how you came to those conclusions, your critical thinking skills, and your logic and your rational thought development. And so that takes more time and it takes more effort to lay out those arguments and to do the research from different sources and integrate the background readings into your experience to support your conclusion. So your faculty member is not just looking for the answer. We're not just looking for the conclusion. We're looking for your reasons why, the thinking and the evidence behind it, and your logic and your rational thought development. The second area of that's a challenge or the difference between military and business writing versus academic writing is the process of writing. So when you're in a business environment or you're in a military environment, your superior would give you a command or an objective to write up a memo or write this up or write that up, do a report. You pass it off to your superior edits it, adds a couple things, passes it off to their superior, and before a decision is made, there's 2 or 3 hands that have touched this document. That's different than what you're going to find here and what your experience will be in an academic environment, because you are the single author of this document, of this assignment. So you have to go through the brainstorming. You have to go through the outlining and the editing and the drafting and the formatting, and all those things take time. And so you have to consider those elements when you develop your time management plan for these classes. The third key difference is voice. So if you haven't noticed, especially in the military, you're big on uniforms. I mean, you're dressing the same, you're often talking the same, and sometimes that comes out in your writing. That comes out in your writing, and so that causes some issues because it raises some concerns for academic integrity issues. So we want you to be aware of that. Your instructor will be looking for your independent understanding of these concepts. And so we're looking for you to paraphrase different ideas from a variety of different readings and background sources. We're looking for you to summarize some of these ideas in your own words. So quotations are great, but your instructor will care more about your understanding of these concepts. And that is different than stripping out a quotation and sticking it in your paper. It's fundamentally different, and it takes a lot more critical thinking and a lot more time and effort to summarize these different ideas in your own words and put them in. But that is what your instructor is looking for. And if you consider these things, you will reap the benefits of this program upon graduation, and I promise you will become a more effective communicator and contributor to your organizations. The next slide is just meant to give you a general overview of academic writing structure. And so this is not an all-inclusive slide. These are just some tips that as an instructor, I see students kind of missing these points. And so as a writer that you may not have as much experience in an academic environment, or maybe you've been out for a while, I hope that this gives you some direction to get the wheels going and build up that momentum early on. And so there are more resources, more in-depth resources like the ones that Michael mentioned within the Writing Center and our resources drop down. So please make use of that. But here I just want to frame your mind into what we're looking for in terms of structure and content. So there's basically going to be three main parts of your essay: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. And so your introduction is kind of like any presentation you may give, like a PowerPoint presentation. You always have a first slide that tells your audience what you're going to be talking about and why it's important. And so that's your introduction paragraph. You're just going to be basically presenting an overview of what you're going to be talking about and why it's important. So I want you to think about this because there's an important statement in your introduction that your instructors look for, and it's called a thesis statement. Essentially, this tells your reader what the purpose is of your essay. And so a great way for you to know what your instructor is looking for is to look at the module learning outcomes. So every module, you have 4 modules. Every module will have learning outcomes on the home page. So every module will have learning outcomes for every assignment on the home page. That is basically what your instructor is looking for, and that is what your instructor will be looking for or measuring your understanding of those concepts. And those are great statements to put into your introduction paragraph, and to help ground you when you're answering these questions. So in addition to the learning outcomes, your assignments will have like 3 or 4 questions that you have to answer. Use those learning outcomes as like the lenses to view those questions. So address the learning outcomes through answering the questions. So consider that with your thesis statement development, and definitely make use of those module learning outcomes because they give you what your instructor is looking for on each assignment. From there, you got your body paragraphs. And so the best recommendations I could give you when you're first getting going in your writing is to break up those questions into sections and subsections using headers and subheaders. So just like on a PowerPoint presentation, you have headers that tell your reader or tell your audience what this slide is about. Same thing within your essay. Include a header, include subsections within that make it overtly obvious to your instructor that you are addressing this part of the assignment. This is the key term that you're going to be addressing. So not only does it provide some structure for you for your essay, but it also makes it very obvious for your instructor that you are hitting all those points within your assignment. And so again, going back to the content of your assignment, is your instructor looking for the conclusion? Yeah, sure, we're looking for your answer to the question, but again, we're looking for the reasons why. And so when you draft your paragraphs, I kind of want you to think about aiming for about 4 to 7 sentences. Trust me, nobody's going to be counting your sentences out, but I think it's a good guideline for you, because if you're going below that 4-sentence mark, then you're probably being a little bit too brief or concise, and you're not exploring the topics or discussing the topics in detail. So make sure you're going back and citing some evidence from your background readings. Again, we're looking for APA citations and some evidence, some objective research and evidence to support your conclusions. And if you're going above that 7-sentence mark, then you're probably rambling on too much, or you could make that into a more concise structure to better highlight your ideas, or you just need to break up that longer paragraph into some more paragraphs, into maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs. But you don't want to go on and on a page and a half of text, of block text. You really want to break that up into small sections and subsections, include those headers, and make it really easy for your instructor to pick out those main points. If you're struggling, again, I talked about the thesis statements above, but if you're struggling in terms of how to start a paragraph and what your instructor is looking for, I always mention these points right here. Define the key term, explain the application of the key term to the assignment, and then discuss why the concept is important to either the module learning outcome or just the class in general, specifically and with specific focus to the module learning outcome. So those 3 points, I think if you cover those, that should get you to that 4 to 7 mark. Include some evidence in there to support your ideas, and that's a great way of just getting started. This is not going to be the perfect way. I can promise you that your instructor will give you feedback, but it's really important for you to take that feedback and then just continue to build upon it. Your instructor is not looking for perfection. In fact, you shouldn't expect that of your instructor. We're here to make you better communicators and better critical thinkers. That's our value. That's our objective. And so when you explore these concepts in a variety of different ways by defining and explaining and discussing the value of these concepts, you're in essence exploring these concepts from a variety of different ways, and you're thinking about them in different ways. So consider that when you're drafting up your assignments. And then the conclusion paragraph is the last part of your assignment, and it really just reflects, it's just kind of like a reflection of your introduction. Your introduction is telling your audience what you're going to be talking about, why it's important, and your conclusion is going to be basically stating what you already have talked about and why that's important. And so they're mirror images of each other. Again, this is not an all-inclusive, these are not all-inclusive suggestions. It's just simply to get the wheels going, and over time you're going to receive more detailed feedback from your instructor to become a better written communicator, a better writer. And so I just highly suggest that you accept that feedback, and with willing and open arms. So I hope that helps. Again, refer back to the resources under the writing resources under the resources tab if you need some more in-depth advice. Always reach out to your instructor, because we love hearing from you and we love to support you in this process. Honestly, it is our honor to serve you. So please make use of us.
Thank you, Dr. Del Hierro. We also have resources to help students outside of the classroom. First, there's Alumni Fire, which is for all current students and Trident alumni. The URL is on your screen now. This is a place where you can connect with other students, alumni, faculty, and staff to get advice on your education, career, and more. For more information, reach out to alumni at trident.edu. We also have Career One Stop, which is a source for career skills development, such as resume reviews, interview practice, and more. This can be accessed on the front page of your student portal right after you log in. If you have any questions on that, reach out to Trident Trident4careers@trident.edu. That's Trident, the number 4, careers@trident.edu. Hey, Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the new session. Welcome, Tasha. Hopefully you're having a great New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you too.
Great. And so we have a few questions in already. And actually, give me a second. I have to adjust my audio. Okay, there we go. And as a reminder, if you have any questions, you can submit those on the question box. Go to the right-hand side of your screen, go about halfway down, you'll see a box that says questions. Just type your question in there, hit submit, and we'll address it now. And first question for you, Tasha, is are professors required to provide feedback on papers?
Typically, yes. I mean, I would say for the majority of assignments, they would provide written feedback as well as a grading rubric. Obviously, there's SLPs that there are quizzes that wouldn't require feedback, but in general, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And see, next question we have here is, see, when I submit my assignment, can I submit it do I submit it directly to my professor, or do I upload it in the student portal, or does it matter?
So this is a really important question. So I want to make sure everybody understands all assignments should always be submitted directly into the student portal. There's drop boxes there. If you haven't done orientation yet, please go in and practice this week. There's practice drop boxes where you can submit work. I'm in there every day giving feedback on just, okay, you successfully submitted it, or I can't see the assignment. It has to be in the portal to get a grade. If you email it to your instructor, it will not be reviewed for a grade because they have to be able to click on it to even provide a grade to it. We typically discourage emailing any assignments unless we specifically say, send it to me as proof of XYZ if there's some type of exception that needs to be had. So if anybody on here can't emphasize enough, get in the habit of submitting everything into your classroom drop boxes. And there's a drop box for every module, every assignment.
Okay, great. Thank you. And next question, Tasha, this is about threaded discussions. Can you explain the purpose of threaded discussions?
Sure. So the idea is to have an academic discussion, essentially. So when you're in a classroom in a brick and mortar, you can learn from each other, and you can also demonstrate to your instructor that you're understanding the concepts, or you're able to explore academically and articulate yourself in a way where you can dig deeper in the topics. That is the purpose, is to, one, demonstrate to your instructor that you have an understanding of the concept and you're able to communicate that in an academic way in a classroom setting. And the other would be, I lost my train of thought, is just to be able to, sorry, I blanked. Really just to engage with your peers, but also to show that you have ability to write academically. It's almost like what I consider a discussion to be is like a mini paper, right? So when I take my first discussion, there's always going to be a word minimum. It's usually 150 words, 200 words. And that's a great practice for me. I always knock out my first module out of the gate because then I'm showing, okay, I can meet this requirement. I usually start with a little introduction. Again, it's not a paper. I don't want to give that impression, but you can treat it similarly where you have a little introduction, you prove your point, and maybe a summation. I know at the graduate level and even more advanced in the bachelor level, people will cite their sources, which is recommended as well. And it's just a kind of a nice way to get your feet wet before you start submitting papers. Engaging with your peers is important as well, and you are graded on that in the rubric. So that's my kind of long answer for that.
Yeah, and to add on a bit, I teach a 300 level bachelor's course, and yeah, citing sources is a must. And I think for students who are new, if you're writing a paper and you're taking information, putting it, even when you put it in your own words into your paper, you must give credit to that original author. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's one of the points on our plagiarism list. If that doesn't happen, that's considered plagiarism. And Tasha, I think one important point, maybe I missed this, but is it recommended that students jump into that thread of discussion early, like within the first couple days of a module?
Yeah. So I want to answer that, and then I want to also highlight one other thing about the discussion. Typically, there's a recommended time frame on when you submit that first discussion post. It's usually in the first week. It's usually within the first 6 days of the class. That's what the rubric bases it on, which it starts on Monday. So by Saturday, you should have submitted at least your first module. There is some classes in some colleges that require the first module to be submitted by Wednesday or Thursday of that first week. Now, aside from that, typically your assignments aren't due for 2 weeks, but it's a great way to really gauge how you're doing and to kick things off, where it's like, okay, I've started class, I've submitted an introduction, which is not a graded assignment, and then I'm going into kind of a, not quite a paper, but I'm starting to engage the class. It's a great progression so that maybe by the weekend you're working on a paper. And I think you saw in the webinar, I recommend like week 1, do a paper and a discussion, week 2, do, an SLP and a discussion. So you're kind of breaking it up instead of waiting till the last weekend before everything's due, because on the discussion rubric, it does grade you on whether or not you're spreading out your discussions, if you're doing multiple peer responses, are you meeting the minimum requirement, which is typically the minimum for a peer response is around 100 words. Which brings me into the next thing that I wanted to mention. We live in a world of Twitter posts and Facebook posts where communication is very informal, right? You're just throwing out your opinion. That's all good. It's really short sentences. A lot of times they're not academically formed posts, right? That's very different from a discussion. These discussions have been around long before social media, and the idea is to not treat it as a conversation. I mean, you want to engage your peers, but you want to also treat it as this is an academic assignment. You'll not be using texting abbreviations. You'll be using complete sentences, and really formulate that response. And that is going to help as well with getting more points. I think when people see it, they're like, oh, this is kind of like a forum where we kind of post, similar to social media posts. And I would ask you in your mind to make a clear distinction between the two. But you got to start somewhere, right? So I don't want to intimidate you either. Like, start somewhere and start getting the feedback and see if you miss points. I always say great students go in and they look, where did I miss those points? Where can I do better, right? You're not coming into this knowing all the answers. You're not coming to this knowing it perfectly. If you do, great, but allow yourself that grace and that wiggle room to make mistakes and to improve.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think when students are in a public forum, sometimes I think there's the feeling they want to be right, whatever. It's okay to be wrong because it's an opportunity to learn from your mistakes and get even better. So, Next question is, can students access their modules and do schoolwork from their phones?
Yes. That's a great question too. All good questions. So you can work from your phone. The tricky thing about submitting is it needs to be in a Microsoft Word document. So if you're able to get Word on there, I haven't tried in a while. I will see students submitting from their phone. I'll see more discussion posts. There is an option where like maybe you type it in your notes on your phone. I'd always spell check it, proofread it, even with your discussions before you submit it into the classroom. And I would save your discussion posts too. You never know what happens, right? Technologically, maybe there's an issue with your posting or the internet cuts out right as you're going to submit it. And so I would save those assignments. But I do see a lot of students work from their tablet or their phone. Just keep in mind that obviously you have to have internet, and the type of file that you're uploading might not always be viewable if it's other than like a Word document or a PDF. So maybe you do the work on your phone, and then keep in mind too, at Trident, you get free Microsoft Office through your Trident email. So you can download Microsoft Office. I don't want anybody on here to feel like, oh, well, I don't have the software, because you have access to it. And if you have a computer or somewhere where you can download it, that I believe that does have to go on a computer. So.
Thanks.
Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, are the steps available, like in the form of like a document, PDF document or whatever, so it's something we can share?
I think they're typically, I can look in orientation. I think there's instructions there, and then any advisor that anybody talks to will have some like instructions, but it's not beautiful, but I can see what we have.
Okay, yeah, let's touch base after this, because this is could be a good opportunity for you to meet a new content writer, and if there's nothing formal together, we can formalize it and help students out. Let's see, and then last question, and Tasha, in case I forget, the second part of this question, we're going to want to follow up with the student one-on-one afterwards, but we can handle the first part now. It's a question is, if I finish all of my modules early, is there any way to get a transcript or final grade before the close of the session?
Sure. Is that the only part of the question, or the second part is
the
for later?
The second part,
Okay.
I'm not. It's something that's more related to the student. Yeah.
Okay. So, long story short, we do not post grades early, and I know people have promotion deadlines and things that they're aiming for. If they're trying to graduate early, I recommend overlapping classes, but the grades will always post the Thursday following the session close. We had a session close on Sunday night. Grades will post this Thursday. That is as soon as we can do it. If you really want to know the system, if we release one grade, we release them all, and a lot of the grades aren't finalized usually until the last day from the whole university. So we don't ever run that risk. But as soon as grades post, you can order an official transcript. You have access to an unofficial transcript that you can download immediately, or your advisor can send you an unofficial transcript. So that's kind of the long answer to that.
And just to add on to that is that I think whether you're trying to submit stuff early, many students have different reasons, although most tend to be related to being PCS or TV-wide for the military students, is that work out a plan with your advisor and professor so you can get the benefit of the learning. Just don't send everything in one fell swoop, because you will not get the benefits of feedback, and advisors and professors should work with you.
So
And if,
yeah, and you mentioned, can I finish my class early? So we encourage students to move ahead. I mean, if there's an ambitious student, I'm all for it, right? But the key that I find is, and Daniel's probably seen this too, day one of class opens up and students have had early access the week prior. Every class you'll have that. And they'll submit all their assignments. And there's danger in doing that, because if you're totally off base on module 1 and you use that every module without waiting for the teacher feedback, you could have submitted your entire class and miss the mark. So I would say work ahead, but submit a little by little. So like if you have an assignment done and you're waiting for feedback on another assignment, wait till you get that feedback, because if they're like, great, you're doing awesome, you're on track, then submit the rest. It doesn't mean you can hold on to the work and then maybe adjust it based on the feedback, but you know, nothing's, we know you guys have deadlines and things like that, but another thing is too, is if you're submitting it all the first day of class or the last day of class, you're running a big risk of missing something and getting hit for points when you might not be able to make it up. So do it carefully. And if you do submit work ahead, which again, I am a huge fan of, with the discussions, there are those peer requirements. So I would say work ahead, but then go back during the week of those modules and make sure that you're interacting with your peers, because you will miss points on that as well.
and if Dr. Del Hierro was here, he'd probably say something along the lines of communicate early, communicate often on this. And it's definitely let people know you're not, it may seem like you're on an island, you're in a little bubble, but you're not. There is an enthusiastic and supportive team here to help you. So those are all the questions we have today, and we don't have a student success story today, Tasha. So I guess I'll send it back in your direction. Do you have any last-minute words of wisdom or advice for our new students for this session?
Sure. I think just going along those lines, like online education is so awesome because it's flexible, but I can't emphasize enough of having that plan and paying attention. Go into your syllabus today, guys, check it out, and give yourself that space this first session to just figure things out. I think sometimes people go in and immediately, like, they'll be like, I got it, I'm doing great. Or they'll be like, this seems hard. And they kind of suffer in silence. And I'm not saying that, like, you know, a lot of students have a great experience at Trident, but you have this whole team who legitimately, like, our jobs are here to help you. And so if you're like wondering about how to download Microsoft Office, or you have an assignment that just makes no sense to you, or like you don't know how to use the library, we are here. We can help you with that. So I think to be successful, the most successful students I see are often those who are engaged and are asking questions, and the ones who are kind of like, you know what, I've had to figure out life on my own, so why would I start asking now? We'll find that we are here. We want to have those relationships with you and build those, and you don't have to just be there on your own. So that's my advice. Connect with us, please.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, of the students who reach out to me most are by far the ones who perform the best. They don't have all the answers, but they want all the answers.
Yeah.
Really the best way to go. Good luck, everyone, this session and beyond. Hopefully we'll see you on graduation day, whether it's this year, next year, the year after, or whenever. But thank you again, Tasha. And if anyone has any questions, let us know. We're here to help.
Thank you. Bye, guys.